All right, gentlemen, we are here. Luke and I have just spent the last more than that, recording, editing, all 7 Mission Impossible rewatches. Apparently, that's what everybody else should have been doing for this movie as well, because good God, the amount of callbacks to stuff that happened 30 years ago is absolutely insane. I am joined once again by Luke Reviews, my faithful co-host, and second time to the channel, Dexter Armstrong. Dex, it's hard to believe you haven't been on the channel since 2023 when we did Godzilla -1.
No, I was on for Rebel Moon with Dontre.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. So those 2 back to back, and that was
That's
it.
not a great one, to
Yeah,
be honest.
exactly.
No, it's
I feel
very
like I
bad.
kind of screwed you there. Literally, it's like you were on for one of the best movies of that year and one of the worst. And after that, you were like, I got to take a break. Like after that one, I gotta. And if it makes you feel any better, that part 2, also Rebel Moon part 2, was even worse than the first one. The first one at least had like something going for it. That second one was just bad. But we have another part 2 here. So I don't know where to begin. Like, do we begin like with the production history, why this wasn't called part 2, even though it clearly is? Like, do we go into like what everybody else has already been saying, which again, like we already pretty much know everybody's thoughts on this movie. I feel like everybody kind of came out of this movie and we're like, it's not the best movie, but because it's Mission Impossible and because Tom Cruise has literally like risked his life so many times for this franchise, and now the fact that they're finally ending it, and I use that in the loosest of quotes because, again, Tom Cruise has said, oh, I want to do this until I'm 100 now. That's his latest proclamation as far as just the ridiculousness to which he will go to for this. So, so Dex, you and I saw this together, so I want your thoughts first, just in general, not necessarily on the movie, but just about Tom Cruise as a personality in general and how he literally goes out of his way to risk his life for these movies, and almost how that almost gives him a pass for some of the more questionable elements of his movies.
Well, it's like a stunt movie. I mean, that's the whole point. So like you can have like worst parts of like, I mean, you're still gonna go and see the movie and like it, even if there's like worse writing, a worse like overall plot. Like as long as Tom Cruise is hanging from the side of an airplane and like doing all this cool shit, I don't know. I think that it's fantastic. I really like the movie.
No, that's the thing too. And the fact that, I'm glad that you said that, because the fact that, again, this is one of the quote unquote weaker Mission Impossible movies, but we still love it. We still have a great time. Luke, you were the one that said it best, where you're like, look, as long as everybody knows Fallout's the best, 2 is the worst, everything else is kind of like you can have it any which way in between, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I saw this almost over a week ago now, so it's mellowed in my brain. I have a fairly clear opinion on it, and I can say that yes, it wasn't bad. The bad was bad, but the
Yes.
good was so good that I'm like, yes, this is what I've waited 2 years since Dead Reckoning for. I got exactly what the good stuff I came for. I was very happy with, and honestly, like with Mission Impossible, like Dex said, the stunts are what we come for, and the story like supplements, because they don't have scripts, they have sequences,
Exactly.
and then they
It's
build
literally
around
like,
them.
exactly. But again, it's the fact that they shoot these things so practically, like, oh man, like, I just gotta say, just as far as the stunts go, there were points in this movie where I was literally like sweating, like on the edge of my chest. Like as soon as he jumps out of that plane into the water, and then when he goes out of the submarine and dives deep down into, like, because we knew after having been set up by the last one that he was gonna go into the submarine and he was gonna do it solo. But then actually seeing it, and you're like, you are literally like holding your breath the entire time, because of course they're not going to make it easy for him. He's got to go through like that whole submarine. The whole stupid thing's going to roll over on the ocean shelf. There's going to be a point where it eventually starts to sink. He's going to have to maneuver around all the giant missiles. And then of course he's going to be he's going to get the thing. He's going to be right about to get out. Oh no, he's got to cut his wetsuit off. Oh no, the thing gets snagged on the stupid submarine. It's like everything that possibly is going to go wrong at some point will go wrong. But I think the thing that separates this one from the last 7, if I'm being honest, even the last one, which again was the part 1 leading up to this, is the fact that they pretty much are like, okay, we kind of are gonna assume / hope that our audience knows what's going on in there, right? They know about the entity, they know about Gabriel. So this one, we're just gonna give them nonstop action. We're gonna hit the floor running, be like, oh shit, Gabriel has been like disavowed by the entity. Is there a particular reason why? Okay, yeah, he lost the key. Okay, he fucked up. We're just gonna immediately hit the ground running, and we're just gonna like be running around the globe trying to do all these things to stop the entity. It's gonna be 3 hours long, but it's gonna be so jam packed full of action that you're not gonna care. Dax, it's funny because after the fact, you were bringing up all of these things, and then I was like, yeah, all of that was set up in the last one, and you were like, oh, I didn't watch the last one. So I feel like it's funny because these movies have never exactly been like the MCU in the sense that they haven't had the tightest continuity. But this was the one where it's like, okay, you kind of had to watch everyone going up to it because they brought back the rabbit's foot from 3. They brought back Donlo and the knife famously from 1. And obviously, again, because this is a part 2, there it's directly going off of the last one where we were introduced to the entity and Gabriel. So, needless to say, I think you were a little confused by this one.
I mean, okay, so yeah, it's because I've seen a bunch of the movies. Like I've seen definitely the first one. I saw Fallout. I saw um Ghost Protocol, and like every time I saw them, it definitely wasn't when they came out. And then so I could just go into it with no prior knowledge or never seeing another movie. And then it was just like I understood what was happening. It was super entertaining. And then this one, like you said, there's a bunch of callbacks. There's like we're following a plot line. It's not just like a completely new mission. It's like related to the past movie,
Yeah.
which so there was so much stuff I just didn't understand. And I think they did an all right job of doing it, but I still wish that I mean I assume people would have seen the first one before this, but I wish they would have done a bit better job of just making it that you can just watch it by itself.
Yeah, it's actually funny that you mentioned that because I kind of am inclined to agree with you in the sense of where like instead of like kind of doing like one of those like flashback montages, which they have done in the past, instead they kind of just dump a bunch of exposition on us, like like gratuitous even for these movies. Like these movies, especially the Macquarie ones, have gotten a little bit gratuitous with the exposition dump in the past. But this time they just full on like the first scene I feel like is just Tom Cruise, Benji, and Luther just sitting down basically recapping each other on what happened in the last one, but they're really recapping us, and so it comes off as really forced. I mean, like what are these things? They're all talking about shit that they already know about. Like what is going on here? But it's like
And
we
in
know
the mission brief that he gets from Angela Bassett, who's now the president,
right. So I told you about that. I told you that was gonna happen.
and that whole thing is like super like Ethan, you've done all this in the past, and it's showing flashbacks from all like 7 movies leading up to that. So that was a bit like, oh, okay, this is what I'm in for. Have to readjust a little bit.
Yep.
So and then get into the rest.
They finally referenced 2. That all the movies they
Yep.
skipped over everyone. They finally referenced 2, the worst one. But like I said, it's a thing of where they're kind of assuming that their audience is going to know what it's going to be going into. Like we're just going to hit the ground running. We're going to hit you with just nonstop action. Ethan's going to be doing a lot of running. They're going to be doing a lot of insane stunts. Gabriel has been disavowed by the entity completely. So now we're just going to again, we're just going to deliver the stunts. And I feel like that's kind of everybody's big takeaway is that the stunts, when they delivered, oh man, do they deliver some of the greatest action sequences that I have ever seen on film. And this is after the Halo jump. This is after the helicopter chase. This is after numerous amounts of motorcycle chases. This is after the Burj Khalifa sequence. This is after him jumping off of numerous wonton buildings. This is after the train sequence from the last one. This is after the motorcycle jump leading into the train sequence from the last one. Like the amount of stunts I literally made the joke in the last reaction about how this is stunt number I've lost track because that's literally how many stunts that he has done at this time. And this time we literally get to see him surviving against a submarine. And even though it looked really CG, that set looked really convincing, I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to talk them into like actually like going that deep into a sub because I mean, hey, let's just be honest, that's just what rich people really love doing with their time now is going and exploring the deep sea in faulty technical machines. And one of the greatest biplane sequences. They brought back biplanes. When's the last time you saw a biplane chase in anything, you know? So with all of that out of the way, Dex, what did you think overall of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning?
Overall, I thought it was a great movie. I thought the CG was all right in the submarine. My like least favorite parts of the movie were definitely at the start, like when we were talking about with all the exposition and stuff. Like when we were introduced to Paris and Grace, those scenes happened like that. Like I had no clue what was going on. In the Grace scene alone, we're introduced to like 3 characters, like 2 people who already know Ethan, Grace obviously, and then we quickly go into the next scene in the prison with Paris, and then I have no idea who prison or who Paris and then the 2 other guys were
Right.
and then they just never explained it. I don't know.
Yeah,
So it was
Briggs and
super,
Vargas.
yeah, but overall, I think all the stunts were great. There were a lot of, like you said, sweat moments. Like when he was in the submarine and all the missiles were falling on top of him, I could feel like sweat coming down my face.
Yeah.
It was, so I think it had great highs and maybe some definitely some low lows.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Luke, your thoughts?
Yeah, so we covered it. So about in the first hour or so, there's a lot of talking about the last movie or the last 7 movies in this case. It Oh, sorry. It did lose me a little bit. Like, okay, what does the entity really want to do? I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, that's okay,
yeah.
whatever.
I'm like,
We're
oh,
back to it.
we're still doing
I'm
this.
like,
Okay.
so then, okay, whatever. The entity wants to kill everyone. It's really the only thing you can do with AI in fiction. It seems like
Yeah.
that everything leads back to HAL 9000 from
Yep.
2001. Um, Gabriel, I've leaned into the Gabriel just being like a crazy Dick Dastardly type villain, even with the biplanes, like Catch the Pigeon kind of stuff.
That's a reference I haven't heard in a long time.
No, I love that show. This wacky races. Anyway, and then I think the one more issue I have with this, like as a whole, that it's too big. Like
Wow.
if you track the McQuarrie ones, it's like Rogue Nation. Okay, it's super tight, super quick paced spy stuff. Fallout, it's like the transition into a big action saga, but there's still a lot of spy stuff. And in Dead Reckoning, you have like the intense scenes like at the party with the entity, or the whole train sequence where Vanessa Kirby is pretending to be Haley Atwell and whatever. And this one, we didn't really get any of that. It's all action. I was like, we had like a little bit of that. I think I would have been a little more high on it, but the action does make up for it.
Yes.
I can't say that much. And I think the submarine sequence is it's like this perfect video gamey type sequence where like you have to weave through the door, like you're looking around, like maybe like a square pops up, like, hey, you have to go press this at this spot. So I'm watching it like, okay, he's gonna have to lose that. He can't leave without that, so he has to lose the oxygen tank. And it's in the biplane sequence, like, oh,
Exactly.
it's a Fallout remix, but it's still
pretty
really
much.
good.
Literally, I was seeing that. I'm like, I think I've seen this before in Fallout, but with helicopters. But it doesn't matter because it's still awesome. Like, and also the way that Gabriel dies, just like it's too perfect. It's too perfect. It's totally befitting of his character, which is great, especially after he got the con moment at the end of the last one, which was hilarious. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with any of that. Like I said, the first hour is, I don't know. Like my whole thing with the first hour was, I'm like, okay, it's long. Yeah, it doesn't need to be as long as it is, but like what you were saying, Dex, as well. It's like they're reintroducing us to these characters that we've kind of already been introduced to. So they're kind of like lightning zooming through so that we can like get to the fun stuff that we need to, which obviously again is setting us up for, again, we had all figured it out. Like I wouldn't really count this as a spoiler super much. We'd all really all figured it out from the trailer that like, oh, Luther was gonna die in this one. Like it was pretty obvious. The one thing, and Luke, I actually wanted to get your opinion on this because Dex, you pointed this out too. That I was like, Luther's apparently like just dying in general now because you have like a hospital bed with like an IV hooked up to him too. I'm like, why was that? Just like they never explained that, like in the last one. Like I'm like, that was the one thing where I'm like, okay, did I miss something here? Because everything else, like we literally just watched the 7th one, so I'm like, okay, so pretty much every new edition and all the setup from that movie was already there. But I'm like, definitely missed the point where Luther was dying. So there was that. And then obviously later on, once Gabriel comes in and like puts the nuke there, it's like Luther's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to sacrifice myself. I know that you've been saving me all these last couple movies from dying. You know, Luther came this close to getting killed in Fallout a couple times, but he was like, yeah, he's like, it's finally my time now, Ethan. Now I'm gonna go and defuse this bomb, and you're gonna go off and save the world again, like you always do. And it was a sad moment, but because Luther's been such a massive addition, like installment, a part of this franchise literally since the beginning, but it was also like it was really being expected. They're like, okay, we kind of gotta, it was finally them kind of acknowledging the fact that it's like, okay, there's not much physically that Luther's gonna be able to do here as opposed to everybody else, so let's just like get him out of the way, give Ethan even more motivation than he already needs to stop the entity and Gabriel and save the world, and then we're gonna get the plot going. And so essentially, this is how the rest of the plot goes. So after Gabriel kills Luther, essentially what you have is Ethan basically having to pull off a 2-pronged mission where he has to send his team, the rest of his team, which now consists of Benji, Grace, Vargas from who was Briggs' partner in the last one, Greg Tarzan Davies, and Paris Pom Clementieff, who also switched sides from Gabriel's side in the last one. He has to send them to this remote island in the Arctic in order to receive a set in order to be able to get the coordinates for the Sevastopol, which they stated in the last one was the container for the entity source code, which is one of the things that they need. They need to merge the entity source code from the Sevastopol with this kind of what they've called a kill switch, or like a poison pill that Luther has invented, which has analog code on it that will be able to trap the entity and basically remove it from cyberspace. There's another key phrase point that where they need to go to some bunker in South Africa near the end.
The Doomsday Vault.
The Doomsday Vault, yes. But that's essentially what our setup is. Ethan, meanwhile, while the team is going to get those coordinates, Ethan, meanwhile, has to, in order to avoid the entity, which is slowly taking over cyberspace and slowly, taking over all of the world's nuclear arsenal, Ethan essentially has to get himself captured so we can have a very, very fun scene with the president, Erica Sloan, Angela Bassett from Fallout, along with Kittredge, two of the intelligence heads for the last one, Charles Parnell and Mark Gaddis, and a couple new people. Holt McElhaney as the Secretary of Defense. Nick Offerman is the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Janet McTeer as, I don't remember what her position was, but she's in there as well. So he can basically convince them to give him an aircraft carrier so that he can meet up, run by Hannah Waddingham, so that he can go and meet up with a super secret off the beaten path sub, run by Trammell Tillman, Milchick himself. Dex, you and I freaked out when that happened. So that he can receive the coordinates from his team via Morse code, and then from that way, dive down to the Sevastopol, retrieve the source code, meet up again with his team, and be rescued by his team at the last possible minute, literally dying and being resuscitated in the process before they all go to South Africa and trap the entity and stop Gabriel. That about, I feel like, sums up the plot of what actually happens in this movie. So it's another one of those things where it's like, they kind of get it a little needlessly complicated. They're like, okay, they're like, I'm going to have to send you guys to this point. We have to go to this point. We have to do this, that, the third. We have to, we're going to meet up at this point. We're going to literally defy logic. And then it's going to end with one big like action spectacle. So I don't even necessarily think that it's the most like, it's the least on plot. If anything, it's almost a little bit too heavy on plot, where there's so many technical things that have to happen simultaneously in order for it to work, that really is kind of where the runtime drag comes from. So it's not like a situation of where like there's large stretches where nothing is happening. It's really just a matter of, because they have so much in this movie, in this final installment, that they need to set up by virtue of how much happens in it. The exposition is going to be a little long. It's more so just like kind of the recapping from the last one that I think is really probably the most problematic, if I had to say. I think for me, the biggest thing going into this one was just like, okay, how are they going to end it? Like, I'm like, okay, is this going to do a thing of where like, are they finally going to do the impossible? And actually kill Ethan off? Are they actually going to kill Tom Cruise off? Or are they going to do a thing kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy did, where they're like, okay, this is kind of like the end of the current run that we've had so far. We're all going to go off. We're all going to kind of do our own separate thing for a couple of years until we're eventually needed to come back if we decide to revisit this once in a while. The Guardians of the Galaxy, as we know, are all going to get killed by Doctor Doom in that one. But at least for this one, it seems like, okay, the team survived. They all made it through. Even Rolf Saxon, who, again, they brought back from the first one, made it all the way through. And they're like, okay, we're going to go on. We live to fight another day. The IMF lives to fight another day, but Tom Cruise wants to go off and do other things for now. So we're going to kind of put a pin in this chapter, in this section of the franchise that's been going on for 30 years, and everybody else is going to kind of go on their way. Luke, I'm going to talk to you about this first. The longevity of this franchise is something to be admired here, to say the least. Again, 30 years. Next year, officially, this franchise has been going on. Again, they've released one movie about every 5 to 6 years, and again, with the exception of 2, they really haven't missed. So, like, again, like the consistency of this franchise overall is something to be admired.
Yeah, I think the consistency, and more so the importance of reinventing themselves in each movie. You know, we've sat through 8 of these now, in quick succession. We've seen how they evolve from like slick spy movie to romance movie for whatever reason, to
whatever the hell 2 was,
to this almost kind of made for TV action movie from J.J. Abrams with this personal angle, to Ghost Protocol, where they said, okay, it's the 2010s, we're making things fun now, and then 2015, where you start the McQuarrie era and it kind of transitions into this action epic kind of thing. So it's a constant reinvention, keeping things fresh, while building on what you already have, as the last few have referenced the first few. I think that's one of his biggest strengths. Maybe it reaches too deep into the bag of candy in this one, if I need to create some sort of analogy. Is this the end? As you said, for now, for now, it definitely is
now.
the end because Ethan has the entity at
Yes,
this
he
point.
does.
So
He is literally he has literally become God. Tom
in
Cruise
that,
is
in that
like
magic USB.
Yes, Tom Cruise has literally been striving to become God for the last like couple of McQuarrie movies, and now he has literally achieved it. He has the entity literally at his command. Dex, what did you think of this franchise, this installment's overall like commitment to its continuity? The fact that this is like finally trying to bend over backwards and pay off like 7 straight movies, 30 years worth of continuity here.
Well, I think it's pretty good if this is going to be his movie that he takes the break on before he like. I mean, he said that he'll come back later. He just wants to take a break for now. But I think it's good that fans are going to get like a break. And like, sorry, with this break, there's comes with like a lot of closure, with like a lot of characters and a lot of like kind of final like full circle things. Like when we were talking about um the villain in the first one,
Jim
I can't
Phelps,
remember his
yeah,
name. Yeah, his we find out his son, obviously, right? And
right.
then that whole thing comes full circle. They even like shake it out in the end, like they're fine now. That I thought like that was just one of a couple moments where like I can like just wait for the next one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like there was more closure than maybe more Mission Impossible movies normally do have.
No, I
So I
like
think
that, and
helped.
it's funny too because again, that was a point where it's like I that wasn't even something that I really needed to know. I just assumed it's like okay, you have this new guy, he's working for the IMF, he's out to chase Ethan, and then we get the reveal. It's like oh, that's Jasper Briggs is actually like Jim Phelps' son. Like okay, like that wasn't a piece of continuity that I necessarily needed, but it's kind of cool there actually, you know. And you're right, it does bring into question the whole idea of like legacy as far as like oh, this happened so long ago. He's like oh. He's like, I heard the rumors, like my dad was a traitor, and that's why you know you had to take him down. But still, so like there were, I like little bits of that, and also again bringing that back to Donlo, the fact that how this really was trying to be a full circle moment from the first one, where you have this one random like kind of like side extra who was just the unfortunate patsy who again like you know was poisoned as part of their first mission in order to break into the CIA vault and steal the knock list all the way back to the first one, you know, again through absolutely no control or anything that he could have done about it. He is unfortunately kind of made the patsy and shipped off to this random island in Antarctica. But even that made for like a pretty poignant scene because Donlo plays a pretty crucially important part in this movie because he reveals that he's like, yeah, he's like, they were looking for the Sevastopol. They didn't find the coordinates that they needed, but that's because I knew that it was pretty important. I was trying to warn them about some sort of tech for years. They never listened to me. And now, so it's like, I love how Mission Impossible has like always brought back like crumbs, like referencing back to the first one ever since McQuarrie really took over. And yeah, I think that the ways in which this movie paid homage to its own history, I personally really enjoyed them because like Dex, another really poignant moment. This is what I literally like walked out to pee during, and I came back and afterwards you were like, dude, you missed like one of the best parts where like Ethan reunited with Donlo. And Donlo shows him the knife and gives him the knife. And you're like, wow, this is not where I was expecting this to go. This is not what I was expecting to see. I don't know how many people would even remember that sequence from happening, but
Yeah. And it wasn't just the knife because Ethan like apologizes and he thinks that he like owes him like his life because he basically took it from him because they sent him to this remote island. And then he is like, you know what, it's totally fine because he never would have met his like current wife on the island and he thinks he still would have been at that job and pretending to be happy. So if anything, he actually thanks Ethan for it. And then like you said, Dom, he gives him the knife, which is pretty cool. And then I think later in the movie, Simon Pegg for some reason has it instead,
yeah,
which
he
is kind
does.
of random. It got pulled out of nowhere, I guess.
Right. Well, that's the other thing too. Also, is near the end. Also, like when the final shootout happens too, and Benji gets shot, and you're like, "Oh no, we already lost Luther. Are we gonna lose Benji too?" Because Benji also has been like such like a primary component of this franchise since he was introduced. Like Ben, like people forget like how early Benji. Obviously, Luke and I don't, but Benji was introduced all the way back in 3 as like just like a tech analyst, and people remember too. Benji was really the first one to like comment and give us the clue as far as again, it's an infamous J.J. Abrams staple. He always introduces some element, some black box, some big thing of question marks that he doesn't actually know what it is, his famous mystery box. He introduced the rabbit's foot. They never told us what the rabbit's foot was in that one. And now like, oh, we just have this device that's been sitting here for, what is it, 17, 18 years since that one came out, because that one was 2006. Yeah, let's just use it, you know? And they're like, yeah, the rabbit's foot, that's the entity, basically. And literally, I remember, Luke, you and I, we were joking when Benji's introduced in that movie, and he's talking about how, like, you know, I had this Oxford professor who was basically talking about this thing called the anti-god. I was like, huh, entity, anti-god. Funny how those two sound so similar. And, well, here we are. So this is even like a major full circle moment for Benji, who, again, has now been a part of this franchise since then. He was up to Field Agent Ghost Protocol, and he's been a crucial member of Ethan's team ever since. And so, yeah, this movie, it really, really was paying homage and coming around full circle with really every instance that it could. What's it called? Obviously, again, J.J. Abrams doesn't get credit for that because, again, he only ever introduces the mystery boxes when we.
He's really good at introducing
He's really,
them.
really good at introducing them.
There's no one better.
Resolving them? Yeah, when he tries to resolve them, that's when we get something like The Rise of Skywalker, which the less said about that, the better. But, yeah. Oh man, I'm trying to think of what other elements that we could have right there. Oh, Dex, the friggin' when Nick Offerman takes the bullet for Angela Bassett. Did not see that one coming.
That was a crazy, like, that. I was gonna say my like favorite, like, I know we had the two A plot and B plot going the entire time, which technically I guess was all like the A plot because it was when his like team split up. But the whole time with the president and like the bunker, and they have to figure out how is the United States going to handle the end of the world. I thought that was amazing, and sometimes I was more invested in that than the actual plot.
Yeah,
because they have that conversation about, okay, which city are we going to bomb in return? It was like, oh, we're really going nuclear.
Yeah, they're going there.
And then when they said, like, yeah, we need to like bomb all the other places that will have the nuclear capabilities, and then like to handle the fallout, the like political fallout, we should do one of our own. So it looks like we also suffered. And then like, I don't know, she decides no, which I was kind of surprised. I thought the most logical thing would have been to do it, but I mean, good that she did.
Ethan rubbed off on her.
It shows some character development. Ethan rubs off on everybody that he runs into. Again, he brought her Walker. He revealed that Walker was a traitor in Fallout in her last installment. And again, she somehow failed upwards from being the head of the CIA to the president, which that's still the funniest thing for me that comes out of this movie is the fact that, and also the fact that like, Luke, we were both talking about like, yeah, Sloane's fuck up. And then I was like, yeah, and I think somehow she's like president this next one. He's like, you're like, what? And then you're like, oh, wow, she really is. But yeah, no, you're right. That was like kind of the emotional core of the movie because that's the other thing too, again, that I have to give this movie credit for. This movie made the politicians sympathetic in this one. I think that's the first thing I've ever seen in at least in a long time where politicians and like heads of state of the importance of are actually made sympathetic here, where it's like, oh, they're representing the real people that are like having to make the tough choices as far as like, okay, what happens when this thing takes over, because it's a matter of when, not if, Luke, with the biggest countdown clock I've ever seen in any of these movies. And they're like, we have 2 days. We have 3 days. We have 72 hours to fix this whole thing. And like, so definitely I will say that like the McQuarrie continues with his signature of making each movie just progressively a little bit bigger. And I'll say that again, even though it was very long, this movie really did feel like it had the biggest stakes humanly possible, where they're like, yeah, the literal fate of the world is at stake here. But because we now have like enough real world things to back it up, because again, we are now, because again, the biggest difference between my criticisms of the last one versus this one is that last one, ChatGPT was still kind of taken off. It wasn't as like widely used as it is now in 2023. 2025, we're in a post ChatGPT world now. So like at this point, it's just a matter of, oh, I don't know if it'll get to like this level of dire, but like we are in a situation now where we are in a world now where this technically could happen. You know, like obviously again, going all the way back to Terminator and obviously again, 2001, a lot of things have been said on kind of the introduction of AI, but this is the first instance where we are living in a world where something like this is actually a part of it. So I don't know if just that element gives this movie an extra edge for me, or if that's just me and like kind of like my pre-internet age paranoia still kicking in. I know that's kind of a resident of the internet. You guys are both a little younger than me, so you both have like had the internet pretty much your entire lives. But I still like remember like a smidgeling, just a speck of time in the pre-internet age when people were like, oh no, this thing could happen. And Luke, obviously, you were also saying the infamous Christopher Nolan quote as far as why he never works with
See,
AI.
I couldn't find it. I saw it somewhere and I tried to find it.
Look, the point is,
sure.
you saw it, and it sounds like something that Nolan would say. So I'm just gonna go with it. Where he's like, "Yeah, I feel like Kubrick already said everything that there is to say about AI." Not that that stopped other people from trying to comment on it, but yeah, pretty much like Kubrick is the master with 2001. Again, the fact that 2001 came out in 1968 and feels like a modern day futuristic movie, it's still insane, honestly, how he pulled that off, and the fact that I don't know how do we feel about giving the entity an actual voice in this one? Because the last one we only really saw people communicating with it, like what's it called, like Gabriel. But again, I feel the entity for me worked a little bit better as like kind of this like nameless, like shapeless, voiceless, like kind of, for lack of a better word, entity that was just kind of like haunting cyberspace out there. So how did we feel about like Ethan directly communicating with the entity and the entity referring to itself in the third person? I don't know. That was the section where I felt a little weird towards. And then like how Ethan literally just had to say goodbye to Luther, and now he's just in this giant coffin that just got left there for him to communicate. I don't know. That was the only part where I'm like, what are we doing here? You know, I don't know. Dex, we'll start with you. What did you think of the actual voice of the entity in this one?
Oh, well, first of all, I thought it was really weird that the coffin was just left there in the first place because they're like chasing like Gabriel, and then suddenly they're like, "Whoa, what's that?" Um, I thought that it was kind of a cool sequence. It was definitely one of my favorite. I think that's when the movie like picked up a little bit because I actually told Dom like during the first 20 minutes of the movie, I was like, "This sucks. I don't like this." It was super cliche. It was super like boring. Like the whole thing with Luther, I was like, he was totally fine in the last movie, at least from my understanding.
Right.
So I thought it kind of sucked at first. So I mean, I thought it was okay giving him a voice. Like I said, I like that whole sequence. It was interesting to like kind of give some more exposition on like the entire world at that moment. And then I think it even talked about like Ethan, and then showed like a potential future for like his like friends and colleagues. Like because even after he gets out, he's like, "Stay off the ice, stay off the ice," which they never brought up again. Which I thought, which I think is kind of interesting. Like she wasn't like, "Oh, Ethan told me to stay off the ice," but it made the situation that much more dire for him because now he's like realizes like everything, like he needs to do this mission and needs to do it well, otherwise all of his closest people, and that's the whole theme of the movie, is that he'll sacrifice the world or put a chance on the world for his close friends. And then so the entity like showed him that, and then it just made him, get ready for the mission, I guess.
Luke, we've never seen that before, right? Ethan willing to put the entire world at stake just for his friends. That's never
Oh,
once
no.
happened in any of these movies,
Or
ever.
even giving the bad guy exactly what they need
Yeah.
to fulfill their plan. As to the locking into the entity, I was very excited for that scene. I think the voice should have been just Cruz, maybe like slightly
Right?
modified.
Right?
Like I think that would have made the most sense. But that's maybe they thought of that and they tested it. Maybe it didn't sound right.
Oh, man,
We got some
missed
cool
opportunity.
we got some cool end of the world visuals, which I'm always partial to. My love for disaster movies, I love seeing the world end.
Oh, it's the
But
greatest.
in this case, it's nuclear. Stay tuned for Denis Villeneuve's Nuclear War whenever we get that.
Right. What is it? What is that? Is that Rendezvous with Rama, or is that something else?
No. That's Nuclear War. That's
Okay.
that's like a real world scenario that how it would happen if it did happen. So, but that's like a decade away.
Okay. Yeah, we gotta wait a while for that.
Yeah. Anyway, it established the stakes. It gave some cool visuals. Obviously, gave Ethan the more motivation than he already needs. So that was one part of the opening that I liked. And after that, the entity kind of, it doesn't really have much of a presence. At least in the last one, it had the presence. It showed up at the party. It misguided Ethan through Venice, and this one is kind of okay. We were chasing it, and we're leading it into the Doomsday Vault, and it wasn't really present. So I think that was where it struggled to really give the entity its presence in this movie, and that's why it ranks lower on the MI villains list.
Yeah, definitely overall. Yeah, right now I have the entity and Gabriel as the weakest villain. I even have Dougray Scott from 2 over that just because he's so entertainingly bad in that movie. But yeah, it's a thing of where, like I said, I understand like the overall the philosophical implications, threats of AI, but just like as a physical presence, I feel like it's if it had been one movie where they had the chance to show this, that might have worked a little bit better. But because it's split across 2 movies, and because they're really only still having to introduce the concept of AI as a villain and what this thing is capable of, and how we really don't get that sense, and we really don't see that until this movie is where we really get the sense of like, oh, that's what this thing is capable of. This thing is literally like demolishing the current world order, and to the point where also like it would just like have random followers that would somehow be infiltrating every like high level meeting. Like I don't know, like I just thought that was also a little bit sloppy on this movie's part. Like I get that like it was really soon, it was really recent. It's only been like 2 months I think since the last one. But there were a couple like continuity things there where it's like, oh, the entity, like they haven't like thought to like, oh, now that the entity is literally generating followers, they haven't thought to like vet some of like the random people that they have just like over on the side who could potentially be like an entity, because that happens twice in this movie. Once in the super secret bunker with the president and their officials meeting, and then once on Milchick's submarine. It happens there too. And then another thing that I thought was like a little wonky was there was one little bit that they revealed about the Sevastopol explosion that they did not tell us in the last one. Where the last one obviously opens with the Sevastopol explosion, so you're assuming, okay, like that's the kickoff for the this event and this next couple movie. But then in this one, they reveal, oh no, that took place in 2012. Was when that happened.
That was a big like, whoa.
And I was like, huh? Like that was just one of those things where they kept bringing it up, and I'm like, A, was this needed? B, did this really matter when this happened? C, like, why? Just why? So it's like I understand the reason why, where it's like, oh, we needed to show that like the government of the world kept this covered up because they didn't want this getting out, blah blah blah. But also it's a thing of where it's like, I don't know, like for me it just felt like one of those last minute things. I was like, oh, okay, like this wasn't set up. This is just like a random bit of information thrown in here. Okay, I don't know. Like I don't know, Dex, what did you think of them constantly flashbacks like and emphasizing, oh, this Sevastopol explosion happened in 2012, even though it was at the beginning of the last movie? And also, they said 35 years since it was introduced. So I'm like, wait, is this movie take place in like 2026? Like, what is the timeline here? What is going on here?
I thought it was more interesting because, like, when he goes into the Sevastopol and he like sees all the dead bodies and stuff, we actually got some more like footage and visuals I don't think that we've ever seen before of like them actually dying and then like the torpedo hitting them and all that stuff, and then like all the people trying to like get to the safer part of like the submarine. So I thought that it was kind of interesting, and then like they kept talking about the 2012, like this specific date when they were on the island, trying to get the coordinates with the Russians. I don't know. That was something I guess I didn't focus as much on during the movie, compared to, I guess, other parts.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. It was it was a thing of where I'm like, I'm like, I don't necessarily know how crucially important. I mean, yeah, it was cool. It added more to the lore of the movie, but I was also just like, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is a thing that's there. It doesn't necessarily need to be, but it's a fun little tidbit. So that's that. And then what did you guys think of like the obviously not the actual, obviously again like Gabriel dies in the stupidest way possible, which was just absolutely perfect. I think of all the villain deaths that have happened in this one, but that's the thing too that we haven't done. We haven't ranked villain deaths in this one. I still think number one villain death is it's between Davian getting hit by the car with Ethan rolling over and having him get hit by the car, and the hook to Cavill's face. Those are still like my two favorites, but this death ranked pretty high up there just in terms of like, oh, it's completely befitting of the villain, where it's like, oh, he gets really cocky. He thinks that he's like, haha, you don't have a parachute, and then he gets face first into the rudder, which was absolutely hilarious. So I thought that was pretty good. But what did you guys think of the actual ending? And like, what was this like the perfect send off for kind of this era of Mission Impossible, where they're like, where Ethan like kind of like has like one just like last face to face with like his team, or like his new current iteration of the team before they go their separate ways? I don't know. What did you guys think of that? Luke, we'll start with you.
I think on the whole they ended it well. Like as with many things, like okay, maybe the ending, how you got there might have been a bit shaky, but the actual ending itself, I think is wrapped up well. Like he just disappears into the crowd. Ethan onto the next mission. Like we can allude to that, right off into the sunset kind of thing. So I think that they definitely leave the door open. Maybe in like 10, 15 years, we get Ethan as the head of the IMF or something, and the new team is taking over. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. There's still a lot of potential with the current team. Like they're still young. They're like 20 years younger than Tom Cruise. Like which is still crazy to think about. Like but yeah, I'm very happy with how things ended. As you said, the villain death was very fitting. I don't think you can take him out in a more like silly, cartoony, comical way than you did. So, and the whole biplane
Oh,
sequence leading up to
it
that
was
was
so good.
it's real. There's like minimal CGI involved. Like you to color out the rope that he's attached with. Like they can feel the weight of the wind on him,
Yeah.
and even it's all captured brilliantly. So like we can't fault like McQuarrie and Cruz for their directorial efforts. I think Cruz is like a shadow director on these films
Oh
at
yeah.
some
Well,
point.
he is
So
obviously he's a
yeah,
producer, so yeah, he's calling all the shots. Yeah.
yeah. So on a technical level, these are like above a level of any other action
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, they really are. And again, that's why I still have to constantly give respect to these movies where credit is due, because I just look at that and I'm like, really started with Fallout is where we started to notice we're like, man, they actually did that. They're like, they actually did that Halo jump. They actually did all that helicopter stuff. It's again, it's like it's just working with something just a lot of other action movies are just not capable of. Dex, what did you think of like how this franchise actually like wrapped up and like kind of like gave like its final send off to its characters?
Like I said, I thought it was for someone who hasn't seen all the movies, it was a little sucky that some of it I just didn't understand, at least at the start, and initially because you needed to watch a previous movie, you needed to watch a previous movie with a certain character, the certain plot line that happened, or there's some reason there's tension between these two characters. But for it being a final film for a little bit, I thought it was good that it wrapped up with a lot of like I was saying, the full circles, and a lot of closure for a lot of the characters. And I thought it was cool that some of them had maybe more of a lead role than they normally did. Like Simon Pegg, he gave him control of the team for quite a bit, which I
Yeah.
thought was is that maybe that's alluding to like he's gonna make him like leader of the team in like a future movie or something that have to do that. And then like the whole point of like Haley Atwell is that she seemed kind of like a side character and just like this pickpocket, but ended up having to save the world in a blink of an eye. Um, and then same thing with the
Even with the gratuitous resuscitation scene.
I don't even
Dude, your reaction to that was the best. Was the absolute best. Because
it
I'll
was
even
so
admit
oh my
that
god,
was
it was
that
so
was
unnecessary.
ridiculous. Even as far as Mission Impossible goes, that was ridiculous. That scene.
But what was the name of the guy who was on the island too again? I forgot.
Dunlow.
Dunlow.
Yeah, yeah,
Dunlow.
done. Yeah, like his whole I thought he was gonna die too, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But then it was like I thought he had a really good everybody had their own like little redemption or like their own highlight at the end of the movie, which I thought was good. Nobody overshadowed the other, even though Cruz is obviously like doing this crazy biplane thing. I honestly I there was more tension for me and I was more like sweating at the idea of them in the Doomsday Vault. I
Yeah.
like the I like I know Cruz is gonna win, so
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was overall, but I guess I'll kind of use that in order to kind of bring us into the wrap up of this, which is I will say that overall, yes, this movie was flawed. Did it matter? I don't think so ultimately, because again, it's this movie. It's one of those instances where it kind of surpassed just being a regular movie. This is not only just a regular movie. This is kind of the wrap up of literally it's kind of the denouement, the final pin in an entire really generation of filmmaking. You know, this is a franchise that truly has evolved over the course of 30 years, gone through so many different directors, gone through so many different shapes, forms. The fact that everybody involved has really been working at this and committed to making this the biggest possible, most entertaining thing, and how they're constantly challenging themselves, constantly innovating. Really, no other franchise has done that over the course of this amount of time. I mean, yeah, the MCU obviously gets a lot of credit for doing it in such a concentrated time over the course of 10 years. But this one, the fact that they really committed to, again, just releasing these as massive feature film events over the course of 30 years. That's really what's going to be remembered from this. That's going to be the takeaway from this franchise and from this movie going forward. So for me, out of 5, I'll just do the quick roundtable. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Again, it's not the best. It's not. Within the franchise itself, it's probably my second least favorite. But again, just for this movie really committing to like kind of putting the final pin in this saga, that's really what I give it credit for, and that's what I'm going to remember a lot going from it. So Dex, your final thoughts, if any, and your star rating out of 5.
yeah, 4 out of 5. I wish that it's good that I needed to. It's good that they had a lot of ties to other movies. I wish they explained it better. And the start felt like Threat Level Midnight. Like I literally was thinking about that the entire time. It was too cheesy. It was too cliche. Honestly, the line delivery wasn't very good, and the writing, I'll be honest, was not that fantastic. That the whole time I'm thinking like this is just Michael Scarn, and it's like I'm retired. It's Gabriel and the entity. They're back. What's the job? Something like that.
It's
Sort of.
brilliant.
That's the best use of threat level midnight I've ever seen in anything, because we all know I hate The Office. So that was great. That was brilliant. Oh, Dex, you didn't know this? I despise The Office. Like, I
I think that's
despise
okay.
that.
I like the first I like seasons like 2 to like 5, but then like
Yeah.
1 and then like that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole different discussion that we have to have. Luke, again, my brother in crime. Again, this is the pin in our own kind of excursion with Mission Impossible. Like I said, we've reacted to every single one of these movies leading up to this. So this really is like what feels like the end of an era, the end of a 2-month long project. So your final thoughts and star ratings for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
My star rating is a solid 4 stars out of 5. I think I need to watch it again now with the knowledge of what I'm getting into. With these huge events, like the first one is just okay. I've been waiting this for like years, and it's finally happening. And I need to watch it again to get a real opinion on it. But it definitely wasn't disappointing. It delivered on what I hoped for it to deliver. Has some things that hold it back. But with this franchise, it's like, okay, you guys have delivered like the greatest action saga of all time. I can forgive you with a few things. So I can definitely say that the mission was accomplished. Let's just go with
yes,
that.
indeed. And I think that's the greatest way to leave off on this. So with that being said, people, plug those socials in. Luke, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. School's wrapping up. That means I'm probably going to make a video about something.
Yes.
Obviously, on Talkin TV, we're still doing Lost. We're still doing all the summer big movies. So
Yep.
lot to look forward to there.
Lot to look forward to there, and hopefully we can expect that Mission Impossible wrap-up video.
Yes.
I can see something
all
along the
8
lines of
movies.
like all 8 movies. Yes, a goodbye, a final farewell to Mission Impossible, a franchise that is literally the other franchise that has literally been a part of my entire life. What's it called? Dex, where can the good people follow you on the socials? Any social medias or anything? What's it called? What was the last thing that your Steam Deck that you plugged last time?
No, they know. So this time they know who I am. I don't need to
Okay.
plug anything. Yeah.
You don't need to
They
plug
know.
anything. You're like, I'm good. They know me. I've been
Yeah,
around
they
the
know
block.
me.
Oh man,
I'll be back soon.
I'll be back. Oh God, don't remind me. What's it called? You guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms at Official Talkin TV Podcast. You guys know the rest. And for now, as Tom Cruise said so ham-fistedly at the end of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, mission accomplished. We'll see you guys next time.